You'd make the perfect bride.
Are you volunteering?
Single dad joked, "You'd make the perfect bride." The CEO replied, "Are you volunteering?" The single dad had no idea that one harmless joke about marriage would change the rest of his life. He was standing in the CEO's luxurious kitchen, holding a small birthday cake for his 8-year-old daughter, when he looked at the woman who had spent years building a billion-dollar company and quietly said that she would make the perfect bride. He expected her to laugh, maybe roll her eyes, and forget the moment by morning. Instead, the CEO looked directly into his eyes and asked, with a seriousness that made his heart stop, "Are you volunteering?" In that instant, the room seemed to fall silent. What began as a joke between two people from completely different worlds was about to uncover loneliness, hidden pain, and a second chance neither of them had been looking for. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can give people a second chance and that sometimes the most unexpected person can become a blessing in someone's life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to SoulTales. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories of kindness, family, and second chances. Daniel Carter had never imagined that his life would become so small. Not empty, exactly, but small. At 36, he was raising his 8-year-old daughter Emma alone in a modest apartment above a closed bakery on the edge of the city. His days began before sunrise. He prepared Emma's breakfast, packed her lunch, checked her homework, and rushed to his job at a luxury hotel where he worked as a maintenance supervisor. By evening, his hands were usually rough from repairs, his back ached, and his shirt smelled faintly of machine oil, but he always tried to smile when Emma ran into his arms. She was the reason he kept going. Her mother had left when Emma was 3, saying she needed a different life, and Daniel had never allowed himself to speak bitterly about it in front of his daughter. He simply told Emma that sometimes people made choices they could not explain, and that love meant staying when life became difficult. Emma knew her father was tired, even when he pretended he wasn't. She had learned to quietly put her school bag away, warm up leftovers when he was late, and sometimes fall asleep on the couch waiting for him. Daniel hated those nights. He hated that his daughter had learned patience before she had learned enough about childhood. He wanted to give her a better life, but every time he saved a little money, something happened. A broken water heater, a school expense, a medical bill, or a repair he could not postpone. His dream of owning a small house with a backyard where Emma could plant flowers seemed farther away every year. Then Daniel's life crossed paths with Victoria Bennett, the 39-year-old CEO of Bennett Industries. Victoria was known throughout the city as brilliant, intimidating, and almost impossible to impress. Business magazines called her one of the youngest women to transform a struggling family company into a global enterprise. Employees respected her, competitors feared her, and investors trusted her. But behind the glass walls of her penthouse and the perfectly tailored suits was a woman who went home every night to a silent apartment. Victoria had built her career after losing both parents in her 20s, and somewhere along the way she had convinced herself that needing people was a weakness. She had everything money could buy, yet she had nobody waiting at home to ask whether she had eaten dinner. Daniel first met Victoria after a serious plumbing failure flooded an exclusive hotel suite during an important corporate event. He was called upstairs because the hotel manager needed someone who could solve the problem quickly. Victoria had been furious because the damaged suite was where she was supposed to meet investors. Daniel did not argue with her or become nervous because of her status. He simply rolled up his sleeves, inspected the damage, and got to work. For nearly 2 hours, he repaired the broken system while Victoria watched. When he finally stood up, covered in water and exhausted, he apologized for the inconvenience and went back downstairs. She remembered him because he had treated her like a person instead of a powerful CEO. Their paths crossed again several weeks later when Victoria's company began a partnership with the hotel. Daniel was assigned to help coordinate some of the building work. Over time, Victoria noticed something unusual about him. He was always carrying a small pink lunchbox in his work bag. One afternoon, she asked about it, and Daniel explained that Emma sometimes forgot her lunch, so he kept an extra meal with him. Victoria smiled for the first time in days. She began asking about Emma, and Daniel slowly realized that behind Victoria's serious expression was someone who genuinely cared about children and families. One rainy evening, Emma came to the hotel because Daniel's babysitter had cancelled unexpectedly. She sat quietly in the maintenance office doing her homework while her father finished an emergency repair. Victoria happened to walk through the corridor and found the little girl struggling with a math problem. Instead of walking past, she sat beside Emma and patiently helped her solve it. Daniel watched from the doorway, stunned. He had never seen Victoria's guarded face disappear like that. Emma, meanwhile, immediately decided that Victoria was wonderful. After that night, Victoria became a familiar presence in their lives. She sometimes brought Emma books from business trips. Daniel occasionally fixed little things in Victoria's office that everyone else had ignored. Neither of them admitted that their friendship had become something more. Daniel was afraid of hoping again. Victoria was afraid of losing control. They were both carrying invisible scars, and neither knew how to cross the distance between friendship and love. The moment everything changed happened at Emma's birthday celebration. Daniel could not afford a large party, so he arranged a small gathering in Victoria's home after she insisted they use her spacious terrace. Emma wore a simple blue dress, and Daniel had spent the entire morning baking a cake that was slightly uneven but made with love. Victoria stood near the table watching Emma laugh with her friends. For the first time in years, her home felt alive. Daniel looked at Victoria that evening and saw something he had never noticed before. She was kneeling beside Emma, helping her fix a crooked birthday crown while laughing softly. She wasn't the intimidating CEO anymore. She was simply a woman who looked completely at home beside his daughter. Without thinking, Daniel smiled and told her that she would make the perfect bride someday. He meant it as a harmless joke, but Victoria slowly looked up at him. Her expression changed, and she asked if he was volunteering. Daniel froze. He tried to laugh it off, but Victoria did not. She had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Daniel was the first man who had never asked for her money, position, or approval. He had shown her kindness without expecting anything in return. Her question had not been a game. Somewhere deep inside, she had begun wondering whether the man standing in front of her could be the person she had been waiting for. Daniel eventually admitted that he had feelings for her, but he was terrified. He told Victoria that he could not offer her luxury, expensive vacations, or a perfect life. He had a daughter who came first, bills that sometimes kept him awake, and a heart that had already been broken once. Victoria answered not with promises of wealth, but with something much more meaningful. She told him that she wasn't looking for someone to finance her life. She was looking for someone who would make her feel less alone. For a while, everything seemed possible. Daniel and Victoria began building a relationship slowly, carefully, and honestly. Emma adored Victoria, but Daniel made sure his daughter understood that nobody was replacing her mother. Victoria never tried to become Emma's mother either. She simply became another person who loved her, listened to her, and showed up when she needed someone. Then everything nearly collapsed. A business rival discovered Daniel's relationship with Victoria and leaked photographs to the press. Headlines appeared overnight suggesting that Daniel had deliberately pursued the CEO for money. People online mocked him, calling him a gold digger and accusing Victoria of losing judgment because of loneliness. Daniel was devastated. He knew the truth, but he also knew how easily his presence could damage Victoria's company. Without telling her, Daniel decided to leave. He packed Emma's belongings, resigned from the hotel, and accepted a lower-paying job in another city. He believed he was protecting Victoria from the embarrassment. But Emma saw her father crying while packing her suitcase. She asked why they were leaving, and Daniel told her that sometimes loving someone meant knowing when to step away. Victoria discovered the truth from Emma's schoolteacher. She drove through the night to find them. When she reached Daniel's small apartment, she found him sitting on the floor surrounded by cardboard boxes. He looked exhausted, defeated, and certain that he had done the right thing. Victoria did not care about the newspapers. She did not care about the rumors. She told Daniel that she had spent half her life building walls because she was afraid someone would hurt her, and the other half pretending she didn't need anyone. Daniel had taught her that love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who stayed honest when life became difficult. Daniel finally admitted that he had left because he was afraid she would eventually regret choosing a man like him. Victoria told him that the only thing she would regret was allowing fear to decide her future. Months later, Daniel and Emma moved into a small house Victoria helped them find, but Daniel insisted on paying his share of everything he could. He did not want to be rescued. He wanted to build a life with her. Victoria respected that. Their relationship became stronger because it was built on partnership rather than money. Emma eventually planted flowers in the backyard, just as Daniel had promised years earlier. On a quiet Sunday morning, Victoria stood beside him while he fixed a wooden fence. Emma ran across the grass carrying a handful of flowers and announced that she had decided what Victoria should wear at their wedding. Daniel laughed, and Victoria looked at him with the same playful expression she had worn on that unforgettable birthday night. This time, Daniel didn't make a joke. He simply took Victoria's hand and told her that if she was still volunteering, he was ready. Victoria smiled through tears and said she had been waiting for him to ask. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to SoulTales. Sometimes a simple act of kindness becomes the beginning of a completely different life. And before the story ends, leave a comment saying, "Love deserves a second chance," if you believe that people can find happiness even after heartbreak. Daniel once believed his life was too complicated for love. Victoria believed her success had made her too independent to need anyone. But they discovered something neither money nor fear could teach them: the right person doesn't always arrive when life is perfect. Sometimes they arrive when you're tired, wounded, and convinced that love is no longer meant for you. Sometimes a joke becomes a question becomes a choice, and a choice becomes a family. And in the end, Daniel didn't just find a bride. He found someone who chose him, his daughter, and the imperfect little life they were brave enough to build together.